Good evening. This is the November 20th meeting of the Finance Committee, 5:30, second floor conference room. The meeting will be recorded, both video and audio. Call the meeting to order at 5:31. Public comment? Approval of minutes.
Did everyone get them?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Yes. Yep. There was one, I didn't have the last name on one of the, what was it?
One of the PCFs.
Yeah, I think it was Peter, and I only had his first initial of his last name.
What was the first initial?
Was it Peter?
Thomas P.
Thomas P, was that it?
Well, yeah, let me look, let's see if I can look it up before.
Then I tried to go to the PPP minutes, might have been those on there. Hi, John.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Hey, Jim, the DOT's taking over the room. We're up at our podium and all the where we sit too. So, we gotta be up here. It's okay, that's fine. We're flexible.
Okay. I move to accept the minutes of November 6th.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What you can do is just maybe check the PQB minutes like tomorrow. They should be up and just throw the last name in. Yeah. Oh, no, I know this.
I know.
His last name's Futrell.
Yeah.
Can you spell it?
Futrell.
Okay.
It's right in front of me.
Perfect.
Probably should have caught that. All right. Accepted minutes. Department requests. I guess this calls under a department request. Or maybe new business. But the building inspector dropped off I guess a log of his average weekly hours.
More. Can we keep over your shoulder?
I honestly haven't read it. I just got it today. So I know when we met with him a couple weeks ago, we kind of asked him to revisit, where the day was spent and if there was ways to cut back on the hours, or just to get closer to the scheduled hours. So this is kind of a breakdown.
It's up to 40 hours.
How many hours was that?
40 it came up to 44. Okay.
Yeah.
And we had talked about job description and responsibilities within the hours and, customer service levels and expectations and, meeting and exceeding. I don't know, where we would go with this next. It's not a formal request for an increase. It's something we've known about. It's something he's obviously, put time into. We've requested information. He's provided the information. I would kind of ask him to talk to the town administrator or select board just to see what's the intention. What do you want? Do we want it? Does the town want to go forward with a PCF for this? Do they want to try to incorporate something in the next budget cycle? I think we talked about it last meeting when the PVPC came in regarding the Conservation Commission agent. And, that program is going to run until June 30th of next year, and then there's a gap in funding. And one of the questions we kind of raised to ourselves, and I think to the PVPC and the Concom rep that was here, was we have a known position like this, for instance, who's been looking for hours because they're working those hours. They're looking for funds, and it's hard for us, I think, to get on the agreement of, yes, let's fund the Concom agent next year, but not put the dollars into the position that's already working, that's showing the need. So it kind of becomes a broader conversation with the select board town administrator. You have $10,000 that one position wants, but then you also have existing positions in town that could utilize that today to provide the services, whereas the Concom agent is a kind of above and beyond services than what we've been providing, so.
And that's just two small examples of the larger picture where we already know we're gonna have shortfalls.
Right.
Right. Again, the key is to really keep our eye on the total scope of what's going on in the big picture and not the ones and twosies
Regardless of the
at a time.
department,
Right.
the bottom line.
One of the things we don't see here, I'm thinking of, is, let's say he wants to do this for next budget year. He can put the 40 hours in the budget, and he can use this as a backup to try to get the 40 hours. But one thing I don't see is, remember he said that before, and it says right here, before he came on, we we're getting about $50,000 a year in fees, now we're up to about 100. If he cut from 40 hours back to 32, would that affect the income? And that's what I'd like to see, because if he says we lose $30,000 income, if he cuts back to 32 because he can't do these in a time appropriate, that'd be interesting to know. If it doesn't cut back on the fees.
Right. Well, that came up through our discussions, John, and that's, kind of what we came to is, okay, enforcement doesn't get you any revenue, so maybe we need to focus less on enforcement and more. I know, but to your point.
Yeah, you can't focus on the revenue generating. I mean, enforcement is critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's like saying to the police, it doesn't generate much money, so, do we need all the police?
But your point is cutting back on his hours, so, I mean, it's gotta be,
Does it affect revenue?
Right.
I mean, it'd be up to him to come to us and say yes or no and why. And if it doesn't, then that's a reason not to fund the extra time.
I think if anything, it would just be timing. It would be, you might take an extra week to get your permit.
Yeah,
You're used
and
to
I don't know how that
just-in-time
pushes
service.
forward.
Right.
How
When
much
you
of that would
stagger.
it, yeah.
I think something falls off the plate too. Like he talked about the great things he does, the visits and the revisits, the projects, and if there was a house fire, he visits once or twice, and those are great things. But on the same, as a department, you need to juggle. I have a permit in front of me with $5,000 of revenue, or do I go visit the house fire scene for a second or third time? I think at that point you kind of look at, well, I need to do the permit. I don't necessarily need to go out the second time because I could make a phone call to make the contact, right?
But I don't know that that's true. I mean, I'm not qualified to say that. I don't know if any of us are, you know what I mean? I don't know why he'd have to go out a third time.
Well, he had said that he was making kind of complimentary visits just to check up more on like a almost personal level with the resident
Because that's
versus
his work ethic.
Right.
Right, that's who he
genuinely
is.
cares, and,
Yeah.
and that's an awesome thing. We want to definitely retain people like that. So I think-
Yeah.
Right.
But one of the things he did say, and I think it's a little bit, he's very responsive, which is a good thing, but I think in laying out your work schedule, you could be a little less responsive. It doesn't have to be the next door. No, it doesn't have to be the next day.
Just a word.
There are people, I don't
Just
mean it like
delayed.
that. I'm just saying in terms of scheduling time, that might take some of the pressure off of him. If he were to say, I'll be there within the next 2 days or something like that, not the next day, and kind of build it into, if he organized his time differently, and I don't know that, if he organized and said, I'm gonna do inspections Tuesdays and Thursdays all day, and that's how he filled the schedule, then he backfilled with all of these other things. Would that work any better? I don't know, but, responding to everything immediately really does,
It ups
consume a lot of time.
expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's not bad.
So it set expectations, and I think now that's something else you have to deal with.
And don't forget too, on his permitting side, that's a double revenue, because once that project is done, there's either an increase in the assessment for what was added to that house, or if it's a new build, of course, it's huge dollars, so. It's-
Right, and there's law too, you gotta be careful, he has so many hours when he's notified to do an inspection, so I don't know if he gets notified on Thursday afternoon when he gets back to the office, he has so many hours to do it, if he waits the next Tuesday, it might be too long, so he has to, you have time? I don't know what the
I've worked in towns where you've had to schedule like 4 days, 3 days in advance with a building.
I
Just
don't know-
any
I don't know
general
what's there,
inspection,
so
whether it's
that's all.
But that's
residential
up
or
to him to
commercial.
tell us.
Right.
You know.
Right, yeah, exactly, he'd have to,
So if this was just gonna be for next year, it's, now the discussion doesn't make sense, it's during the budget process. But I think he's also looking for something as of January if possible, if I remember right. Remember that?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, he was looking for
Yeah.
something as soon as he
Well, yeah.
could get
He
it.
was here.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
for the October,
You know, the other thing, and I'm, just
which is January now, yeah.
if you have an individual who's working 40 hours a week at $25 an hour, right? But isn't being paid for those 25 or the 40 hours, but is looking for the help between the 32 and the 40. Is administrative? Is more administrative help? Does that fill some of the office, the need for an office assistant? I know we have Art in there helping out. I don't know how many days, how many hours, but an administrative assistant, by title, does the administrative work and is at a reduced cost from the inspector. So he wouldn't be processing, he wouldn't be taking payment and taking permits, he'd be reviewing, but there's still an intake and a processing done by an administrative assistant that he wouldn't have to worry about, right? Like inspection letters, the 304 inspection letters, the 304 inspection placards, all that stuff can be done by an administrative assistant at a reduced rate. So if it's 16 hours a week for that person, does it fill the gap?
I think you better plan that, Art is a volunteer.
Right.
I think you need to plan in
Right.
eventuality that maybe he'll have less time available, and I'm not
Right.
speaking for him, I don't know anything, I'm just saying, while we're looking at bumping up his hours, you need to anticipate that that goes away. He's either gonna need more hours dedicated to issuing the permits and the letters and so forth, or he hires someone, so that's really, we're gonna be hit again.
You gotta be careful
We need to
that
think about it.
that person doesn't hit 20 hours for benefits, at some point, too. That just adds a lot of money.
So,
But it goes even deeper, right? Because then we've had conversations, the select board's had conversations regarding the building and the health group. It doesn't, from a management standpoint, it doesn't, in my opinion, make sense to have a director or a commissioner processing paperwork and fees like that. And I think it's a bigger monster to tackle with the inspection services, but both of those departments could use an admin, and they could have one full-time, representative, commissioner, director, or whatever the title is for both. But it kind of solves both issues, puts a little bit of longevity in the administrative role because you'll have a full-time or close to full-time person there.
But when you, like I said, when you add the benefits, though, that's gonna skyrocket well over what he's looking for. So, cut the nose to spite the face here, or, if he's willing to do the paperwork and it takes us less time and less money, I'm okay with that from a select board point of view.
Then we should be okay with the service level as it is today. If he's willing to work the hours he's working as a salaried employee, then we should be okay with
But he's
that.
not willing to work it, that's why he's coming to us.
Right.
What he's been doing.
But he's doing it only because he's trying to get through the system, get paid for
I
what
think
he's
it's
paid.
temporary, I think he has a job lined up soon,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
no threat.
Yeah, 'cause he's applied.
Right,
And the thing is, and it's what we've done over the years, a lot of positions, we lose the good people because we're not willing to get up there and pay. I mean, you're in the building field, if you get somebody that doesn't know what they're doing here,
yeah, that would be,
Yeah, we looked at sharing the service, and that, we had all the builders all over us years ago when that happened.
I don't think the point is we don't want to pay or aren't willing to pay. I think the point is we don't have the money.
We can't.
I wish we had the money.
Well, I gotta say, we've said for years and years, you gotta make tough decisions. We're $16 million now, and we still don't, or not able to fund our basic positions, whatever they may be, you know what I mean? This is gonna be the first time we get to fund the town administrator at a level where we're gonna get some quality. Well, maybe give my opinion, but you know what I'm saying? So, and that's gonna hopefully help everything roll together.
But what that would mean some other department will be cut. And that's
Right.
the
It's
harsh
$16 million
reality.
is not a whole lot. I mean, I think the town itself, excluding the school, probably runs on less than $6 million.
Well, I think the school's about eight or nine, yeah, so.
It's close to that.
Yeah,
So I'm
right.
just laying it that, I think they do a pretty good job with, unfortunately, with as little as we have. So we need to find a way to
It's like
get more
anything,
revenue.
it's like in our own
You
homes,
can't
we
do
work
it.
within our means, it's simply how we have to.
Yeah.
Well,
Have to run.
do we tell Tom in this case, using this example, how much is he looking for? You remember a number? To
was an
go
extra-
from 32 to 8?
What was
Or
it?
40?
Do you remember how the financial was? It wasn't a ton.
Let me say
Was it?
10,000 for a number.
Call it 10. Yeah,
I'll call it
that's
10, I don't know.
Wait, it wasn't.
So do we say to Tom, okay, you can go to 40 hours, but you take your fee schedule and you back those fees up to a point where they're gonna pay for that difference?
It's inappropriate. I
Really?
mean,
No, I don't know
to
about that.
drive all the fees up just because
Because that's the cost of
And every
providing a
other
service.
department
It's
that
not
has
so.
fees
It's not,
'cause you
would
haven't-
do the same thing.
you haven't reduced to your core services yet. You haven't actually stripped that position down to what the core level is.
But we don't wanna do that, Mike. We don't wanna strip it down to.
Who's we?
We, the select board.
You've.
Well, what about
you've
your
talked- you've
constituents?
talked about-
We voted at the meetings to give him this 40 hours if we could find the funding. Because we think the job he's doing as a building commissioner is important. So, I mean, that's on record.
We all feel his
With-
job's
with all
important.
this
I absolutely want to
information-
be on record stating that his job is immensely important. I could not agree more with that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to chip away and make them these things too basic. We're a $16 million business. People don't like hearing that out there, but we're a business and we gotta run it like a business.
I
If we
think the
don't,
fees were increased after he came
Yeah, a
on,
little
I
bit,
think.
a little bit.
It brought, well, from 50 to 100, I know some of that was the increase in fees.
and that's the other thing.
That would be interesting.
If he
to know.
doubled the fees, why, under his tenure, why shouldn't he be able to take 10 of that, add it to his salary to go 40
So you're
hours?
just gonna throw it on the backs of the constituents in town and justify paying someone's
You wanna
salary
give
that
the
way? That's-
school $200,000 more to provide more services. Not saying it's needed or not, just we had $200,000 more. Who pays for that?
There's laws
Constituents?
requiring how much we fund the
We're
school.
100% net funding. They want, in addition, I mean, those are just facts, Heather. We're 100% net funding. We used to go down to 95% net funding. We didn't like, we've been up to 100% for the last couple of years probably. So any money you add to the school, to the town administrator, to anywhere, who pays for that? That's on the backs of the constituents. But what service does he provide? Is it a service that's worth $10,000? If he's bringing in $50,000 more, that ROI on that, I'll take my money anytime for,
And what do we
5 to
do
1.
when, what do we do when, housing development takes a dip?
Yeah.
And you
We
don't
should
have
already
that, and you don't have that 50,000, you cut back his
Reevaluate it.
hours?
Reevaluate it. I mean, I would make a contract based on
Hard to
that,
do.
you know? Because if he's getting extra income, I think we're gonna lose income, you know?
They're not gonna lose income.
You don't do the job though. I mean, he's telling us.
I was a
that he can't-
certified local building inspector for the state of Massachusetts. I worked
For
on
how long?
for almost 2 years.
Okay,
So I process fees and I know the exact process. And every single person that call in for an appointment for an inspection,
Yeah.
we can be there in 2 days.
So what size town?
It was a city of 16,000 residents.
How many inspectors do you have?
I don't know the number.
More than one?
Inspectors?
Yeah.
There was a building commissioner and a local inspector. I
Okay,
was
so
a
you
local
had
inspector.
enough people to cover what the duties. We're saying he doesn't have enough hours to cover the duties.
Just triple the population.
I think there's a,
Yeah,
I'll
and there was 2 full-time people.
No,
So
it
your
wasn't
your
full-time,
opinion is
because I worked
different
in
from the
health
select board,
department.
which is fine, but, we're trying to find a way to fund it, because we believe it's necessary, you know?
I think if we put all the priorities up there and we had to
Oh,
pick, I mean, it just added to the list.
Then why don't we share the building commissioner with another city like we tried before? There's savings there, but as the builders know, the service is gonna suck, you
No,
know?
it's not. It's about setting the level of expectation from the
I think 2
contracted
days is more than
services you
reasonable
have.
for anyone to come in and do an inspection.
Yeah, you can't say that it's just going to suck because a builder complained to you about a bad situation in a different town. It's about setting the level of service with whoever you contract with. It's that attitude continues to limit us in regionalizing services, in doing things to cut costs.
I think regionalizing is fine.
But you just said it's gonna suck.
Well, because of the coverage we were gonna get. Were you at those meetings that we had?
I wasn't.
Okay, we were at the meetings, we brought all the.
That was
builders
years
in.
ago, was about
Yeah.
three-
And
It was years
I
we brought
was-
Holyoke.
Look at how many hill towns are regionalizing
Oh,
and
yeah.
utilizing all their services right now. We would be the bigger of the group, right? West Hampton, whatever the other towns are.
No.
We would have skin in the game. We, relationships similar to the Hampshire Regional, right? When you as the larger population, you can help make it work and make the.
That's not a good example.
No, but
It's a poor example.
it's a poor example because of previous
Have a
lack of
The
interest
negotiators-
in fixing it, right?
Well, the
But-
negotiators
Way to
in
go.
that.
Right, well, the negotiators, but then also the lack of follow-up. We've known for years that it's a raw deal and nobody's done anything about it until recently,
Yeah,
right?
it's not an easy thing to do anything with, you know?
Well, no, but
Yeah,
it was
but
easier to
we're
just
gonna
throw your
take a-
hands up,
we're
right?
gonna
I
take a
think
hack
what we
at it.
keep coming back to, guys, is this town's need for funding is ever increasing. We've got to drive revenue.
More revenue.
How can we do that? That's where we need to be focusing our efforts.
Well, do we need to make these
Or
departments
achieve savings. I mean,
self-sufficient?
we've got to do one or the other if or both,
Yeah. Do we,
honestly.
can we make these certain departments self-sufficient, revenue-based? I mean, a couple of the departments I have at the university are revenue-based. If you don't make the money, you lay off people. And, you know,
How can you do that in this case when part of the
Fees.
job is enforcement? Then they don't charge fees on
Well, we
enforcement.
could-
So
we could-
triple it up for the new people
no,
that
no,
are following the
no,
rules.
you could do a
cover
base,
enforcement.
you could do a base on the budget for the non-salary, non-fee. And I have some areas like that, non-fee. And for the revenue part, they have to make the revenue for it. So you can do a base plus revenue. I mean, that's how business works, you know? If you don't have an ROI, you're not in business, let's
You
face it.
can't expect an ROI from a municipal building inspector position. It's just-
I don't know
Something
legally
you
why,
have
if
to
it's a
do no matter
required
what.
service, what
Yeah.
cloud
So-
you have for,
It's
you know,
like asking the
removing
courthouse
hours at that
to
point.
bring in enough revenue to cover their inspections. It's just, it's.
But I mean,
it's
what
not
you're
real.
saying is right. Where do we get more revenue?
That's the
You
key.
know? Any ideas?
And send business,
It's what?
and send business to come to town.
Okay, where do we put them without sewer and all that? I mean, the only place
And
is
it's
near the
not
Westfield.
undoable to put
or
sewers
East
in.
Hampton. It's what?
It's not undoable to build infrastructure.
But it's not here yet, that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't afford it in the.
So
in the
You're
by-
short-
talking years down the road, I
Yes.
mean, you're years away by the time you put infrastructure in.
Yeah.
I can't even hook water up to a new building I want to put up. They don't even have water. Zero services.
this capacity.
No, well, it's elevation. They said pressure. They can barely handle it and go up another little bit on the hill. They said can't handle it.
Oh,
So there's
really?
no service. I mean, how do you entice businesses to come out with no service?
You'd have to invest in the infrastructure.
Exactly, and that takes years.
A long time.
The longer we wait, the bigger this problem becomes year upon year.
Is anything on the charts for the master plan that would include even a portion of the town?
I don't know anything about that.
I mean, they talked about running it down Route 10, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where hopefully the new town administrator mentioned some of these ideas, and he has a lot of experience. So
Good.
he may be able to guide us down the right
yeah,
path there.
Great.
we're putting a lot of hopes on him.
I know.
But he's got the experience.
All right. So I would think we would just table this for now. If it's going to be a broader discussion in the budget cycle, or if,
Unless he can come up with some,
I mean, it's November. If you're looking to be funded January, where it's not coming out of the reserve fund, right? And I don't know.
Transferred from free cash, that would be a horrible
That's,
idea.
yeah, it's not.
yeah.
That's not a road to go down. I don't know where you go from. You know, in January, where did the?
I mean, at least if it was me from the select board, I'd say have him justify it for the new budget year. And if he can come up with a funding source between now and then, come forward and identify it.
Right.
Because we can go around this table 10 times and we won't find money.
You know, and the other thing, and I know, this is a direction I think just to be given to the departments when they talk about raises and looking for more funds. You know, and we say, select board says, town administrator says, you know, provide the funding source. Yes, you can say the revenue I brought in, but all those dollars are already accounted for in the grand general fund scheme. So unless every single department comes and shows that they can self-fund, it becomes a difficult statement to even entertain, because you know part of that revenue is going somewhere else already. If you take it from here, then, you know, how do you plug all those holes? You know, once you start chasing that, where the money's coming and where it's going. So,
I'm going to go back to him and ask him this, you know, what's going to happen if we go to 32 hours? Are the fees going to go down? So again, if he comes up with, says, no, the fees are going to stay there, it's the answer to that question in my mind, you know? If he says, no, we're gonna lose 20 grand, then let's come back
How
to the
could we
table.
though? It should be a timing thing.
I don't know the
Right?
answer.
I mean, people
but-
are still gonna apply for their permit, just take
Yeah.
a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, remember when we were talking about sharing, and it was gonna be like a 3-day or 4-day, whatever, all the builders, and I'm sure you were there, I don't remember.
No, that was before our time,
Before-
really, yeah.
Well, like 3-4 years ago, wasn't it?
They weren't really good.
Yeah. They were up in arms, the service levels were gonna be poor, and, I mean, I've never seen such a congested meeting. Was it true? I don't know. I mean, personally, if I want a permit, I wait 5 days instead of 3. I mean, I just met the fire inspector in Westfield selling a place. He said, it's gonna be a week before I can go there. I said, okay, just tell me a
You
date.
see, that's the thing, I mean, the level of expectation has been raised, so therefore they react to the fact that, well, we might have to wait a little bit longer because we can't be as responsive.
They were
as
saying
what we are.
it held up our job, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, and I don't know if that's true.
And that is true, certainly, if you need them to check your concrete footings before the framework can start, yeah, it could
So it
hold
could
you up a
delay
couple
for-
days,
okay.
absolutely.
And that's money, I assume, as far as the project
Well,
goes.
yeah, time's money,
In some cases, you're gonna be looking for a CO, and you have a closing coming up, and he's gonna say, I'll see you in a week. and-
yeah.
And then everything gets messed up that
But
way.
honestly, if there were
I think
some
I'm just
kind
throwing
of,
ideas, I mean-
but if there were some kind of a published schedule of expectation, then people would build that into their own planning. I mean,
Right.
if I know it takes if I know, I don't get anybody to come the same day. You need a plumber? Next Wednesday,
Yeah.
okay? So you make do with that. If I know and anticipate I'm gonna have a plumbing problem, and I call a week ahead of time knowing it's gonna take a week, and that's all I'm saying. If the word gets out or there is a schedule, to anticipate the 3-day wait, a 5-day wait, whatever it is, then they'll build it into their, into
You'll
their
wait,
work
is what
schedule.
you'll do.
Is it legal to, if it's a week out, it's a week out, and if it's an emergency situation, can there be fees involved?
That's an interesting.
I mean, if it's an
Something I need in
emergency,
one day.
That's
if it's-
Well, highest bidder.
I mean, define emergency.
Exactly, it's their
Human,
emergency.
human life and habitation, yes.
No, like I just said.
If it's a footing inspection, there's no there's no way that constitutes an emergency.
Well, okay, maybe I said the wrong, maybe if it's an urgent need for them, and they need somebody, let's say they get the concrete walls going in, they want the footings inspected, the walls guy's lined up, he says, if I don't do it this Friday, I'll be 3 weeks out.
They should have thought about
They,
it the week before.
well, could they call and say,
No,
okay, I'll pay the
no.
fee, I'll pay the extra fee to
Well,
get you early?
The
Is that
problem,
legal?
No, I can
even
never
if it's
see that.
legal,
Okay.
it won't filter down to him. They'll just go into the general.
I understand that,
So it
but
won't
that'll
help
cover
him.
some of those extra hours
But
that
is
he's
there
not
any-
anticipating.
Is there any
That's what I'm saying.
arrangement with another town that this kind of extra, maybe we have our own, but we have someone for the,
East Hampton's a backup.
it is.
But you paid for that,
I
it's more
understand.
money.
I
Pay
understand.
per
But
inspection, I think. There's a budgeted line, I think.
But I'm gonna ask him to put a published schedule together for inspections, whatever,
Oh, he gave that to us.
but
That was given to our last meeting, that he was there.
not the dollar amount, just timeframes.
Okay, okay,
Like-
time frames. He just gave that one.
Building permit, 3 to 5 days, I don't know, whatever numbers come up, so
Yeah.
it'll be published, so as long as he's in that range, people will know. How would that work for?
For planning
from a builder's
purposes.
I think
point of
that'd be
view?
fine. I think the problem is that Tom Quinlan wants to do
Yeah.
and
great
please
job.
people right away. And that's a really good quality for a worker. I just don't think it's realistic.
When he makes the transition into putting it out, let's say it goes that way, he's gonna take a lot of heat first. Everybody, I mean, they're
Right,
not
because
gonna call
everyone's
us.
used to
But
it.
it's,
Call him.
but it's an adjustment.
Yes.
They're still gonna build.
Right.
They're still gonna develop. It's an adjustment with grumbling, but it's still, the permits will still come in.
It's not gonna deter anybody from.
No, it's not. I mean, they're not building because, frankly, because of Tom, they're building because of the revenue opportunity in building a house in the town, right? So,
The long-term, maybe short-term downside is he'll find a job for 40 hours, we'll have to bring somebody else in.
That's the negative.
That's it.
That's the real concern here,
Well,
isn't it?
that'll happen because he's talked to us about, he needs the 40 hours.
Yeah.
And he's looked at other places. So as these come up, I'm sure, like anybody, people are applying. Like Heather did, because she went from 55 grand to 100 and something,
So is it, he needs he needs what the 40 hours represents in terms of,
dollars. Yeah. Because he doesn't get that much.
so why was that, I don't understand. I don't understand why you're hired as a almost full-time employee, right? That was your terms of employment.
Right.
That was what was discussed.
Right.
You know, I understand there's cost of living increases, maybe there's pay bumps for performance, rarely, right? But maybe that's part of the deal. But then you come back and say, but I can't live without 40 hours at this rate.
It's not so much the rate, I don't think. I think what he came back to, which happens all the time, is you hire somebody at 32 hours, and then you find out the job is more than 32, and you come back.
Right.
I mean, that happens at our place all the time. Whether you can justify paying it or not, you know, it's a whole different story. But, you know, and this is his way of showing us it takes more time. You know, whether we agree or not is a question, and we can agree if there's no funding, you know. What's going to happen is he'll look elsewhere, and we'll try to find somebody else. And I don't know how that's going to affect. But again,
It's what it is.
that can't be the reason we throw
No,
money at it
it's
either.
not
you
the
know?
right, it's not the right way to look at
Right,
it.
but
The
that's just.
position in the town of Southampton is for 32 hours,
Yeah.
that's what the town can afford.
With that, I'm gonna ask that we move on. I'm sure we will revisit this
Nobody's ever changed that clock.
December.
No.
I mean, only when I can reach it.
It wasn't actually working for a while. It's been on the table for a week. Next item, PRFs. None. PCFs. So in front of us, the only PCF we have is for Thomas Petrell. This is the PCF for the transfer station attendant. So this is the hours change that allows him to work up to 22 hours per week. So this is the individual that was putting in a little bit of time before and after each shift. I had to follow up with Vicky and Vandal on this. So the individual puts in a couple extra hours a week, looking to be compensated for that. They look to utilize the funds in the enterprise fund, so they would make the transfer from the expenses to the revenue later in the year, right? Not right away, but it would come from one enterprise fund account to the salary account. There was no anticipated issue with this, no anticipated shortfall. It was basically compensating the individual for the time before and after because the funds were available in the account. So.
And Vicky signed off. On
Yeah.
this the second time.
Yes, yeah, verbally I spoke to her about it, and I let Randall know as well, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
You want to give that to me so I can bring it up at the meeting?
As long as you remember. It's not a jab, I just,
From here to there, I have a shot.
believe me, I've walked out the door with that piece of paper,
It
so.
would be interesting to watch, and I haven't looked very carefully at the revenue from the transfer station. But when you talk about the person's performance, how it might impact the revenue that comes in, I would suspect that this more than pays for it.
I would hope so.
His performance on his job, because I use the
Right.
transfer station.
So, yes, and I think this is the projected year that they'll be out of the red in regards to the revenue and the cost of it. So I think it's a year where the transfer station has made the turn of not costing us more than it
And
did.
that's the monitoring, I think.
Well,
Yes.
that's what it is. He charges people, he inspects everything. Unlike previous years.
I'm talking about the monitoring and the land.
Yes.
itself, the capping of it
Yeah.
and the.
The prices, I think they might have reorganized, they did something to
Yeah.
help reduce that, it reached a year where it's.
Yeah, that was great.
So is he getting hired or just an increase or what?
It's an increase in
2 hours a week.
2 hours a week.
2 hours a week.
He was 20, 22, I think is what you
It's
said.
20 to 22, yeah, so he's coming in a little bit earlier.
He
staying a
was
little bit
coming
later
in a
to clean
half
up the
hour
lockup.
early and leaving a half hour later every day.
Is that
Yeah.
saying that here? I see where it says 22, but I'm not saying where it goes from 20 to
In
22.
the box.
In the box?
I'm looking for that. I'm not seeing a 20 in there. It's just that when it comes up,
Maybe, I think we used the PQB notes as well when we did
Yeah, I
that.
can't print them out, but I can,
you want to make a note on this so you know it's being approved, or
I swear.
because this looks like an hourly rate of $16.94 for up to 22 hours. It doesn't say he was at 20. I have to make a note of that.
Let me just look at the PQB notes.
Yeah, that's where because we looked up part of the reasoning because we had confusion about that.
Yeah.
So it's going from 20 to 22 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't a rate change.
No, just hourly change.
And because they have money in there, is no issue.
Yeah, they'll be able to transfer later in the year. Next item is old business, financial management policy plan. So we met last Thursday, me, Vicky, and Donna. And we looked at the financial management objectives, policies, and procedures book. We looked at it in relation to the audit management letter. In our response for response to two other issues. One of the items was establish a formal investment policy. The town currently does not have a formal written investment policy. We recommend the policies and procedures be established to ensure that the town's investments comply with MGLs. Our response was, while the town has no formal written policy, we are working on a financial management policy and procedure manual. We have a draft of an investment policy that once the manual is complete and accepted, this will be included. So I just wanted to meet with them to make sure that we completed the draft, and that way it'll get signed by the treasurer collector as her investment policy. It'll go to the select board, I think, as an advisement because it's kind of their policy for the investment. It's going to be mirrored off of the investment firm we use. I forgot the name. I wrote it down here. But whatever investment company we use for OPEB and general investments, it'll be their policy. It's what is approved by Massachusetts general law.
The first paragraph there.
And so we'll clean that up. It'll be kind of an accepted policy. That way next year, when this comes around, we're not dinged for that one a second time. So I just thought it was important that we get the policy on record.
So you're basically taking the one from this investment company and you guys will just modify it as you see appropriate, come up with a output?
Yeah, they have like our investment prospectus or portfolio.
Okay.
And that policy is clearly outlined in the packet we get from them yearly. It's their municipal investment policy because you're only allowed to invest under certain terms and in certain things. So we'll be taking that, kind of mirroring it for ours.
Okay, just
Putting
have
the
something
name
to
on it.
publish in our.
Correct.
Okay.
So it'll, if the policy changes on the brokerage or the investment firms, and that policy will change, and Don will have to make an amendment or accept it.
Okay.
But, just having the formal policy somewhere accepted in town, I thought was kind of important because it knocks an item off the list. So.
But even though we don't have one, we're consistent with the policy that they have.
Yes. Yeah. So we essentially, the investment goes to them. The investment decisions aren't made in the building. It's made through the firm. Who's approved to do this for cities and towns, and that's the right policy. So that'll be taken care of. She'll draft it up, sign it because it's her policy, send it to the select board.
Her being Donna?
Yeah, and then she did have a question about if the select board should sign or the town administrator, so I think she was gonna bounce that off of Bob just to see, she wants to sign it because it's her department's policy, but then does it require the select board signature, so she'll look into that. Next old business, we had TIF agreement. No conversation about the TIF, so you don't have to run out, Jim.
Yeah, I can leave, that's no problem. Can I?
No, we're not gonna talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want you to leave.
I was looking for an exit.
You don't get to
Excuse.
excuse to, yeah.
Well, I got 5 minutes, and I get down to it, we're after.
The one thing I did have though, John, and I have requested as a member of the finance committee, the legal response in relation to the TIF, because of the fact that the inquiry was generated from this committee, I felt it kind of appropriate for us to ask for the actual response and to see what it is. I originally started the conversation with Bobby and Charlie. We went back and forth.
You talking about the tip thing?
The legal.
The side of it?
No, I'm not, there's no details at all.
Okay,
It's
okay, I just don't want
process.
to, I don't have any issues.
No,
that's all.
just the process. So it was basically just requesting it as, because we kind of generated the inquiry and, Bob said that it's up to the select board and I said, well, can you ask the
I think
members?
we should put it on the agenda and just vote on the darn thing. I mean, I personally don't have an issue.
Well, it's really only, we can't even vote on it really because there's only two of you.
So did
2
you
out of 4.
did you get the legal opinion that you asked for?
No, Bob should be following up with John.
Okay.
I talked to Bob last week.
Okay.
Right, I've been copying you and Maureen on the request. I'm just frankly looking for it, just so we kind of close it out on our end, because we did send a memo, we did kind of go through the process, and we'd like to see it,
So I'll
see
see
the
Bob.
end.
And
Yeah.
the assessors had it on their agenda today. Do we know if they had any discussions?
I walked by, I saw they were meeting, I didn't.
Can I ask, go back in time here, go back to the building inspector again?
Yes.
I just want to bring up one question. So if he's working 40 hours a week and he's responding very quickly to everybody, if you push everybody out, let's say a week, let's say you need a week notice, that's going to save him that time, that 1 week. But once he pushes it all out and now he's constantly going a week out on everybody, he's going to be back to 40 hours a week. He's only going to save for that 1 week.
It changes.
You know what I mean? He's going to have to cut what he's doing.
So that's what we had talked
Right,
about when
right.
he first
So-
came here, was,
Okay, so he's gonna have to cut services for sure, not just push them out, he's just gonna have to stop doing some things, because
Well,
I don't see how he's gonna get ahead of the game. He may save in that 1 week when he pushes everything out a week, and then he's gonna be back to that 40 hours a week, but a week out.
Yeah.
And you're only gonna go so long, and he's gonna have to stop doing certain inspections or stop doing certain
enforcement.
visits.
so it was kind of a multiple tiered approach to it, right? So scheduling inspections out, whether it's a 2-day, 3-day.
That's a temporary, that doesn't really fix, that fixes a week.
Correct. And then we also recommended that he go back and look at the services.
Yeah,
And
that's where.
core services
Right.
versus extra services.
I was just about to say, that's what we
Okay.
talked about, because he
Okay.
was saying that he was doing more courtesy calls, just.
Okay, cut out the courtesy
just-
calls, absolutely.
Right, just.
Yeah,
But I didn't see on the inspection side of it, that's
Yeah.
not gonna really change anything.
Right.
No, the actual inspection.
He could do it the same way he's doing now,
Or can I
No,
give
that's
it
okay.
something?
cut out the
You can
the
take
extra
mine.
stuff is what
I
you
just
guys
wrote
said.
my
Okay,
little
I just
note
wanted
that
to
you
be
were
clear on
gonna
that,
ask
that's
about.
all.
One of the things we
Go
talked
back
about
on
too was
hours.
management of the day.
Okay.
So as an inspector, you don't want to drive around and look for problems, especially when you're being called about problems. You're gonna drive and see something, but you don't wanna just drive with the intent of,
I don't know, he
let's
does
go down
that. I
East
haven't
Street
heard he
and
does that.
Pleasant, and then, to look for those. I'm not saying he does or doesn't,
He
but
responds to reports.
Right.
and
Well,
then he-
going
Yeah.
from point A to point B, you see something,
Right.
you
Right.
can't.
That's different.
In your head, yeah.
Right.
But, yeah, he's been having some tough cases to deal with, and spending a lot of time on certain things that he just had to respond, and Letty saw the letter today, I guess.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, okay.
So that was our-
I just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page there,
right.
so.
And that was our suggestion, was to basically look at the core services you have to provide, the service level you'd like to provide, and see what you could get, basically. Not, like, I know he justified we're going back here. He justified the
I'm
40
sorry,
hours.
I just was going through that in my mind, but
Right.
the week scheduling out, I
Right.
don't think,
No,
what was that?
no, yes, you envisioned
Right.
it correctly, but
Yeah,
I think
okay.
The
something
change
else
only
is
happens
happening.
once, then it's back to normal.
Correct, it's only gonna be good for 1 week, and then he's
Right.
back to that 40 hours, but now he's a week behind.
Right.
Yeah.
So we asked him to look at the extras that were being
Right,
provided.
that I can
And
understand.
if you could pare those down, so was it 40, is it 38, is it 35, like what, does that reduce the hours and does it reduce the total cost? That was the exercise we asked.
Okay,
This is kind of it's a reiteration of the justification for 40 hours, and it doesn't necessarily look at, is there an hour saved? Is there 2 hours? And I know it seems kind of fruitless, but when you find 1 or 2, maybe you find more, maybe you find an efficiency that helps the situation.
Somewhere between 32 and 40.
I didn't even go back to the beginning of the meeting.
We got ahead.
Yeah, we gotta go down, so,
Is everybody coming to that meeting?
I am not. That's the Glendale?
Good night.
Thank you, folks. Good luck. I'll check with the building inspector.
Thanks. And Bob?
And Bob is on the legal opinion, yes.
All right, whole business. took care of that. TIF agreement, I'll follow up. Yeah, there's been more requests made. It's just sort of ebb and flow of response. So
Yeah.
I set an alarm every week and I follow up every week. So, new business, town meeting warrant. I think town meeting's in January now.
It is.
Yes.
And didn't he say like the third week? Isn't that what Jim just said? He thinks it's the third week of January?
I have no idea. It's a very odd.
How can we not have free cash certified by now?
I don't know. I mean,
The later you turn it in,
the worse it is.
And we turned it in later this year?
Yes. So maybe it's too many duties. I don't know. I'm not close enough to know, but
and the other thing is they tried to combine 2 meetings into one anyway, thinking it would be something in November.
so I was given the number of approximately 415,000 for free cash from Vicky. 415, 420,000. So that's what was put in for, but that has not come back from the
That's
review
not
yet. So that
certified
could
yet,
go
yeah.
down. It generally doesn't go down by 100,000, but sometimes they find something for 5 or 8.
And remind me of the mandated splits, what goes to operating, what
so
goes
our-
to capital,
Policy is, and I
I
don't,
think 35% goes,
capital.
here's it, operations.
Stabilization, capital. 25% goes to free cash, that I know. So that, we're looking at about $100,000 that can be distributed as needed. So that's 70.
I'll have to look up the actual policy here. Hold on. The free cash policy, at least 35% will go to capital. At least 30% will go to stabilization. At least 10%
Goes to OPEB.
will go to OPEB. And no more than 25% will be used for one-time expenses, so transfers from free cash. There's a note, fiscal considerations may affect the implementation of this policy. The allocation stated in this policy do not mean additional funds can be allocated to them. Continue minimum amounts recommended for the certified free cash. So this was our policy from last August. I think this usually gets accepted every year, maybe.
And
I'm not
so-
sure if this is one that gets accepted.
As we think about this and we think about next year's constraints, I mean, do we ever, I don't know how to word this. Do we ever just save the money in case we need it for the budget?
No, we don't.
Have a rating
We spend a lot of money in terms of free cash. On a personal level, like as a member of this committee, but kind of acting alone, I'm in the save money for the upcoming transfers. I just think from a personal voting, mantra or, how I'm gonna look at it is what can we do to save money? I think we have spent, but we're not preparing. I don't think we have enough cash in the
Well,
bank.
it's like what happened to the school.
Exactly,
They kept plugging holes
Right.
exactly.
with the
School
kind of
choice.
raised school choice funds,
Yeah.
and now they have
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
And the town, I think, has been in that situation long
Yeah.
before the school got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some, and this is me kind of speaking.
So I wonder if we shouldn't propose something like reducing some of the percentages in other categories.
That's what I'm getting
And
at.
saying,
Yeah.
we should save 15, 20, 25% every year.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we have no,
And guys,
No
if you look
go-to
at the
fund.
growth in this town,
yeah.
it is shrinking.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's very little new construction. If it is, it's people building their own. There's developers, nobody's really building right now.
slow.
And there's no new subdivisions. I think we're gonna be. in
Well, that's where the
bad
bumps
situation.
are, right? Like when you look at new growth over the past few years, and it becomes an argument over if it's up or if it's down or if it's steady. The way I look at it, it's relatively steady, but you see the bumps from the developments,
Yep.
and then the level is single home builders, right? The developments are what give you the bumps, because if you turn over 4 houses in a year, whatever it is, that's where you see
Right.
the growth.
Of course. Look at Red Brook, Pleasant Street,
Right.
the growth over the past 3 years, I don't see it this year.
But yeah, it's done, right? You're not gonna see it, so, I know I don't like, this is another personal thing, but when we talk about funding a position, the first thing we do is, well, how do we increase revenue? It's like, well, revenue, outside of just raising all your fees, you can't really adjust it that much in a small town, right? You can't institute some sort of commercial tax policy. You just can't do that here. And they need to look at reducing expenses. How do you consolidate services? How do you make services and departments worthwhile to work for, but more efficient, and utilizing regional approaches? It's talked about all the time, and it really isn't acted upon. How do you regionalize? Inspection services are perfect for that, right? They're great groups, and I'm not saying that our building department should go away and we hire someone else, but sell our building commissioner, right, to a different town what can we do to increase these services? How do we help cover his costs by maybe doing inspections in other towns, doing something, right? They have to be amenable to that, but,
Well, I think year after year, we struggle with this, so I think that perhaps we should make a proposal to the select board that they put a group, and I think there are, of knowledgeable people in this town to kind of look at a regionalization thing with the idea that we're going to achieve efficiencies so that we could start to look at our allocation of free cash every year and maybe set up a different proportion and then set up one savings account per se, even if it's 10%. It's got to be something to start.
So I don't remember the exact day. I could find it. It was a select board meeting, and it was recommended, I think, by John, that we do something similar, but look at, how do we reduce expenses? You'd want the group to look at revenue and expenses, but, it was recommended that. I haven't seen anything done. I don't know if that was a next year plan, but that's kind of what needs to happen, because we talk about it in this room and they talk about it downstairs, and a different group may talk about it in a different room, and they don't actually get together and discuss it holistically and how do you fix it. I think it's a great idea. I can definitely put something together, a recommendation or a
There are some people
advisement.
who are capable. Let's go back and look at that insurance thing. They were, paying 75% on short-term disability rather than paying for an a commercial policy.
Right.
What are we spending? What are the patterns? Year after year. And one year we'll pay more, other years we could save a ton. So
Right.
there's no way.
Oh, that scared me. Oh, no.
Just
I
gotta work.
think it's this. We have to move this.
Still on-
This is timing.
I was saying, wait, there's the line out there, what happened?
That's what we all get for taking a nap. No, I agree. I think it's a good idea. I'll put it together. I think another thing I will put in here, and it's kind of a suggestion to be looked at, is the, was it the undesignated funds that we transfer for, drawing blank, CPC, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it last budget cycle, we put so much money in there, but it doesn't all get used, the projects don't get done immediately, there's some that are still there that don't look like they've been started in a
And
couple of
again,
years.
Yeah, I think the relationship between community preservation and maybe master plan, just looking at how.
I'll be honest, I
To work
don't see
together.
a master plan in works here.
No.
You can just tell by who drives it, right? Because the master plan would include the East Street Bridge.
Right.
That's not part of it. It would include fixing East Street. As a resident, I may sound jaded, but if that is such a major thoroughfare as it's been put forward then that would be a part of the master plan, right?
Well, what I'm saying is rather than take projects from the community and whoever submits things, and then they may or may not follow through, but they encumber the funds, let's look at a bigger picture
Right.
and have them plan projects based on that.
I mean, right.
Then
But the problem is, I think that they're so restricted, aren't they, with what they can actually spend that?
they are, but just looking and saying, is there anything that we want to do that qualifies for that?
Right.
I don't know.
You know, I think they'll look to utilize some of the funds if they did something with the old town hall, you know, they'd look to utilize some of those funds for that. And I think that's fine, but we have needs beyond,
So maybe we need
Those
to
buildings, so.
rethink, you know, currently we're contributing 3%, which most municipalities don't. Normally they're either 1 to 2. Maybe we go to the voters, if all boards agree, and see if that 1% can be brought back into the general revenue.
I mean, it's a way to utilize funds that aren't being utilized. And I don't know
You're right.
if they're in any sort of interest-bearing account, but it puts the money towards the services that are going on right now. The services that have the need,
Right.
but can't be funded. through
Versus
that.
a wish list that you almost have to come up with ideas
Yeah.
for, right?
Right, they're kind of
Well,
waiting
that's what I'm
there.
saying. Yes,
What would you like funded? Because we'd like to, you know,
Yeah,
they
we
seem
have
to.
money,
But we're desperate over here, and we're desperate
Right.
over here.
right.
It seems kind of crazy when it's all coming out of the taxpayer's wallet anyway, right?
Yeah. So I'll put together a letter, just kind of maybe bulleting some of the ideas, and I'll send it
But
along.
yeah, I think really the idea should be that we get some rainy day fund set up
Oh,
for
absolutely.
the town.
I mean, most towns have 5% of their operating budget, maybe. Well, we don't, but I think it's 5%.
What do they tell people how to prepare, you know, when you're taking, make sure you have funds to cover 3
3
months of
months of
expenses or
expense, yeah.
something? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't have that here.
No.
I
No,
mean,
it's
we
all
should
wrong.
have some kind of a,
Yeah.
So, all right, town meeting warrant, FY17 without free cash, we don't really have a balanced sheet. FY18, so I did talk to Joyce, she will be including the finance committee on the disbursement of those. I will be forwarding them once I receive them.
That would be, what, monthly, hopefully, or?
Monthly, yeah. I mean, I think, not to sound cynical, but my hope is monthly. You know, I like them every 2 weeks, but monthly is.
well, they do them every 2 weeks.
Yeah. If they do them every 2 weeks, why can't they?
Why aren't we just automatically on that
I know.
distribution? That
Yeah.
sounds kind of crazy to me, Mike.
You know,
For finance,
I know,
okay.
I know.
But then they would have to do it.
I mean, of all the committees, not to get them regularly,
If we're on
it
I know.
should be the finance committee.
Correct. All right, FY18. So I did send that around. I did not take a look at them yet. I don't know if anyone did and saw anything.
I did, and you know, it got me thinking.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. Well, you know, if we're
Which
talking
sheet?
about hours, I'm just talking about expenses in general
Okay.
and particularly wage lines.
Yep.
So as I look at the fire and I look at the highway, they're all over the place, right? And the answer always is, oh, well, they transfer it at the end of the year, they take it out a year.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not
Which
sure
tells you
that's
that the
really
budgets really aren't realistic
Yes,
as other
exactly.
expenses, if that's what they rely on
what
to
I
cover. really.
when I see that, it gives us very limited visibility to if people are on track. And it says perhaps those budgets aren't being necessarily run the most efficient way.
Right.
So my hope would be that maybe going forward we could get more solidified numbers on wages. And if it's, if it's EMT wages, let it be EMT wages. If it's, general highway wages, have it be that.
Right.
I think it makes it impossible for us to monitor until you're at the end of the year.
Well, we've asked for that, to look at what and year-end transfers were made, and
I remember
for what
talking about
purpose,
that,
so
exactly.
that you get a better sense of
Right.
how real is this budget proposal
Right. Because
versus.
some of them are just not realistic
actual.
because they have these other,
I can't get online and here and see what you.
They have the other lines that they're transferring from, so it's like we don't really know.
So with the fire department, we had asked a few budget cycles ago that it be separated so that we could track EMT and fire wages separately, right? So if you're going on a call, you put 3 hours on the call, you charge 3 hours to the fire department wage. If you're going on an EMT call, vice versa. I don't, with it being the way it is, I don't know if they are or are not charging their time, but that's what we'd asked to do, so that you'd set up almost a historical average of what you spend on each, and then you know what to budget for each.
Exactly.
I mean, it also helps, in the long run of if you're looking at another shift or doing something different, you have a baseline for what you spend today for that service. So I don't know, by looking at this, I don't know if that has or has not been going on, but
But I'm just looking at those two lines now, and, they're about a quarter,
We should be at
4 months,
38% should be up right now.
and we're in the low 20%. So,
for the,
Yeah, but if you look at I already looked at this earlier. Can I look at yours? I can't seem to get online anywhere here.
I look at EMT.
That's the revenue.
well, so the EMT, they've been charging more time to fire than they have to EMT, right?
Fire's at,
Year-to-date, fire is at, well, they've been charging more based on your budget.
77%.
Right. So they've charged
Okay.
$60,000 to the fire.
Right, and the other ones are under where they
Yeah.
should be. So I understand. I know that's how they run it year after year. But again, it makes it really hard for us.
It does, but would you prefer that the wages were lumped into one? And then someone came and asked to increase services, and you had no baseline for
Yeah.
justification other than what they
No,
provided?
you're right.
That's one of the reasons we asked, and I know it does get nitpicky with some of the clerks and things breaking it out, but that's why we started asking for things to be broken out, because you never have a baseline for increases when you look at the department as a whole.
Yeah.
But it does give them the flexibility because they're not in control of the situations that they respond to.
Right, so, for instance, I would think, and I don't know, these are probably just end-of-year transfers. I don't know if you can do I think wages are maybe end of year? I have a hard time remembering.
Wages can only be done in like the last
This is the last
60 or 90
90
days.
days.
Yeah.
So they would transfer from EMT wages to fire,
Mhm.
or just charge EMT.
Or from other categories to wages.
Yeah. And then highway needs to be split up because of the winter roads, because of what they allow you to carry over.
Right.
And it has to do with the budgeting, and if you don't spend what you budget for winter roads and
Yeah.
expenses, you have to basically budget to that amount the next year.
Yep.
So this one's a tough one. I mean, this kind of basically cleans itself up the last quarter of the years in regards to wages. So we know what it costs to run the department minus overtime for the year, which we budget to. There's probably some more in winter wages for overtime just because you're going to have some longer days and longer weekends. So, but I understand.
All right. So legal expenses are kind of high, and I'm afraid that's going to get a lot worse.
There is a lot constantly being referred to legal.
Yep. I think that's going to be a big, ugly number coming in the year because, well, what they're even showing spent now doesn't tie to the reports I had, the bills that I had copies of. So whether it's being paid out of another account or pushed down the road, I don't know, but that's going to be ugly.
So the departments that are essentially self-funded and self-sustaining, like the water commission and things like that. And again, coming back to the overhead and the percentage that they contribute for the services that they receive. Have we looked at that percentage? Wait, I'm talking about for next year's budget.
For the enterprise funds?
Mm-hmm. I mean, that may be some way of offsetting some of the wages of some town hall employees who are providing services to those. You know, there's Donna who sends out the water bills. It's at her department. Is it 10% of their time? Is
Right.
15% of their time?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's a
And are we
profitable
getting,
fund.
yeah, I mean, I would want to see that
Yeah.
overhead rate and how it's applied and how it's looked at from one year to the next.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, it has always, it will always be, for as long as I'm here, my recommendation that the select board sit down with the water department and figure out a better working structure. But this is, yeah, it's a perfect example. I think we did that a few years ago when we talked about benefits, making sure benefits were properly budgeted and paid for. And then I think this is the next step, is who's charging. You know, we talked about that with the health director also, with the transfer station. If you dedicate 2 hours a week to the administration of that, then you should charge 2 hours a week. And it, you know, the inconvenience of using a different time code
Yeah,
does not justify not doing it. You should do it. And that's not just towards the health department, that's kind of towards any of these departments that help out a different group.
Yeah.
I worry about, I mean, when you think about this, and again, coming back to benefits and looking at what's in for, you know, contributed to the pensions, because ultimately the town pays out the pension, not the enterprise fund. Are they in fact contributing